Hey, Kristen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Shannon. I'm so excited to dive in.
Me too. Would you mind just quickly introducing yourself to those who are listening?
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Power of Positivity, and this summer we're actually going into our 15th year of
Wow.
uplifting the planet. Yeah, we have a community of over 50 million followers and on social media all over the globe. And yeah, I am excited to kind of talk about how I created that process and what I've been doing over the last few years.
Yeah, and me, along with every listener, is like 50 million. Please do tell how that happened and how that came about. But yeah, what is that built on the back of? When you say the power of positivity and the community that you've built, just talk for a second about the mission of that and its purpose, and then let's get into how you built it.
Yeah, I rebuilt my life using the power of positivity, not just mindset, but in my lifestyle habits. And I was so over the moon with my transformation that I'm like, more people need to know about this. So first I started the brand just as a Facebook page. I just wanted to kind of inspire other people and talk about my journey. And then fast forward a few years after that, we learned how to monetize and I was able to do it from home and be able to support my family and raise my children and do what I really love. And so, yeah, we grew from social media platforms to a website. Now, we have courses, we have several books and all the things. And so I just love waking up every morning, helping to inspire people or, you know, um, kind of move them to take positive action in their life.
And for you, what does positivity mean to you?
It's beyond just thinking positive. It's living in a positive way. It's nourishing your body, taking time for self-care, connecting with people that you love. There's so many ways that we can add more positive energy to our lives. And whatever that looks like for you, spend more time doing it, and taking time for yourself.
What do you think are the biggest? Because let me put it this way. I think everyone would agree that we all need more of that in our lives and would agree that those things are good for us. Just like we agree that probably broccoli is good for you to eat, but not everybody does it. So talk to me about what gets in the way of us adopting that mindset of positivity and why people need to be told that, so to speak, and why people should be learning these types of habits. Like, what is getting in the way of people just assuming that's how life is?
There's so much that we can focus on that's a struggle and that's hard and that's difficult. But as soon as we start kind of looking at it as a little easier and we kind of give ourselves more of a break, that's where we can actually open the doors and opportunities to thinking more positive when we start actually seeing it happen in our lives. Because, at first we think it's kind of woo woo, the people who have positive attitudes might just be luckier or have better circumstances. But what I found was that that's not the case. And today there's so much science behind it, which is so amazing that proves that it really does work. But, it's not something that happens overnight. And I think that's why people struggle with it. They're like, well, I read a couple positive quotes or I started doing this and maybe I did a random act of kindness. And, I'm not seeing that ripple effect. I don't think it works. Or maybe it doesn't work for me. But it's really what we're doing consistently every day. And then we build on that, just like anything in life. When we're doing it every day, over time, we see the effects. And so, for me, when I started to see it compound, I was just amazed that it really does make such a difference.
Yeah, and let's unpack that journey for a bit. When when did you kind of what did you seek out? Because I feel like a lot of these types of transformations happen because you're going through a transition of some kind, or you hit a point where you sort of pick up that metaphorical phone and go, I need help with this. Like, and I need to find a solution. I have a problem I need to solve. What did that look like for you when you started seeking out this type of help or this type of mindset? And what was it serving in terms of the problem?
Yeah, great question. About 17 years ago, I had lost a very successful business. I was an entrepreneur. I had an eBay business. I was a power seller. And this is when eBay was like Amazon is today, right?
Mhm.
And so I had put so much of my time and energy into my business and it was so successful that overnight it was gone. I had not been able to keep up with all of the orders, and a few people had reported, and they just literally shut my store down overnight. And so that was really hard for me because that was my purpose in that moment. That's what I was doing. That's, was my income, and it was wildly successful. So it was just a really hard hit. But then at the same time, it was like I wasn't taking care of myself. My health was suffering, my relationships, because I had put all this time and energy into my business, they were suffering as well. And I really had like a rock bottom moment. I remember also going to the doctor, and I had PCOS at the time, and she said, I'm sorry, you're never going to have children. And it was like, wow, I had felt, early 20s, but I had felt like I had lost everything. Like maybe there was no hope. How could I rebuild from here? I had spent so much time into this business, and it was my identity, right? So from that place, I had so many, negative thoughts and ruminations about what happened. What could I have done differently? Where do I go from here? And I was in bed literally 2 weeks. Like I couldn't get out of bed. I just really had no motivation. And at that point, gratitude, which is such a core pillar of positivity, is really what helped me to start getting out of bed, brushing my teeth again, getting dressed, going out, maybe picking up my phone again and calling someone, because it really did feel like such a dark place at the time.
Yeah. And I mean, I can relate to how that feels. And I didn't go through a similar experience, but I know that kind of feeling of, well, it's kind of compounding also in that direction, right? You start by kind of not doing anything, not going out, and then you're not calling people, and then you're not even getting dressed, and then you're not brushing your teeth. And it just kind of compounds into this, well, I'm just going to kind of exist here. And one thing leads to another, leads to another. And you just kind of become, well, this is the default right now. And it's very interesting how like habits really do affect you, and whether they're conscious or they're not conscious, whether they're like what you're just gravitating to in the moment because of a reaction to something, or because you're consciously trying to change your habits. What got you out of that sort of funk for those 2 weeks? What do you think generated a little bit more energy to try to rebuild?
Just the fact that the mindset of, hey, at least I have a bed to sleep on. I have a roof over my head. I can get out of this. And just really feeding myself with, you can overcome this. You've done it before. There's got to be a solution. Just I started to move in a more positive direction. It was a slow journey for sure, but each positive thought kind of built on the other, and each action built off of the other, and that's when it was like, well, I'm going to go for a walk. Maybe it's just around the block, but that block became, around the city. And then, eventually I started going to the gym. It was every little habit. I kind of acclimated and expanded it to the next one. What can I do next? And so I started to feel better as I got outside, and I started to kind of really prioritize myself, because when I was hustling and working on my business, it was wildly successful and I loved it, but I was forgetting that I was human and I needed to nourish my body, and I needed to, get out with friends and family. And it wasn't just all about success and making money and doing great work, that I was more than what I was doing. And that was such a great realization that helped me to get to a better place, to find more opportunities for work and kind of rebuild.
Yeah. And as you mentioned that, I almost picture this garden of plants, right? And you're watering one. You keep watering that one, and then the others start to die, or they start to wilt. And when that plant then gets harvested, right, or taken away from you, you're left with a bunch of plants who are just craving the water. You don't have anything that's healthy, right? That's what I'm picturing when you're describing that and saying, I need to plant new seeds. But why should I plant new seeds? This garden is dead.
Yeah.
Right. And then you had to have the motivation to then plant the new seeds and the hope. I think it's gratitude, right? To be grateful for what was there, but also the hope that that there's something better could be coming down the pike, and that by planting a seed today, you could generate something in the future. I think that's always very hard to overcome
Mm-hmm.
because we don't really think about our future. We see what's in front of us and we let that dictate how we feel.
Mm.
But, when you talk about gratitude as one of the pillars of positivity, talk to me about the other pillars and how they shaped into your journey.
Yeah, you're so right. That's so good. The next thing I did was just started nourishing my body with better foods, because when I went to the doctor, they talked to me about, hey, with your condition, these types of foods might help you try to fuel your body in a better way. So I started moving my body. I started fueling it better, and it really helped my mindset as well. They're all intertwined. And yeah, so I think healthy foods is another pillar, moving your body, in ways that feel good. It doesn't have to be in the way that someone else does. And for me, that was just walking at the time. I also love dancing. So I would, put on Zumba or something. And so I think finding ways to feel joy. Before, I wasn't really allowing myself to do that because it was like all about work, and it almost became an obsession. I wasn't sleeping enough. So sleep, as simple as it is another core pillar and habit that allows us to live more abundant lives and more positive lives, because we've got to get the proper sleep. And over time, I realized that you can try to be more productive, but what does that really do for you if you aren't sleeping and really allowing your mind to have a break? Because when I give myself a break, even if that's going for a walk in between meetings, or getting the proper sleep, or just getting outside, I'm in such a better flow when I'm working. So I'm more productive. So it's even better for me to create that balance as an entrepreneur.
I agree. And but it's a challenge too, to go against, I guess, the norm of what we're taught to do and this instinct that we've built up. I mean, I struggled with this for a long time, that I thought every waking moment that I had was supposed to be like, if I'm not doing something to further my business, I'm wasting my time.
Exactly.
And it's just this instinct that bites at you that's like, you should be like, you should be pitching right now. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. And then I felt the sense of guilt of going to the gym at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, even when I was my own business owner, like not even an employee. I just felt like this isn't what I should be doing right now.
No, absolutely. You're so right. It's like the mind just wants you to be this machine that just fuels work. And that's when you have to put your identity in so many other buckets to kind of give yourself that break, that I am more than what I do. Because I think I really adopted this. My worth is in what I'm doing, and look how much I can create, and look how great it can be. But I wasn't fueling the other things that really make life worth living.
Yeah. Could you speak to a bit of, because we were talking a little before we hit record, and I'd like to clue listeners in on to what that looked like, because you had the eBay store had been shut down. Talk to me about like what was going through your mind, your position at that point, and, the commitment to changing that situation, like, financially, emotionally, like where were you at? What were the circumstances around you? And then how did that evolve over time?
Mm. Then you couldn't just get an EA to help you really easily like you can today. So I was doing it just all by myself. My husband was helping me, but he was working as well. So when he wasn't working, we were, filling orders and doing customer service and all of that. So today, if there's things that you don't like to do or want to do, you can easily hire an EA to do those things so that you can stay in your zone of genius. So that was definitely something that I wish that I could have done then that would have helped me. When I lost my business, it was like I really had all of my eggs in that bucket. That was it for me. And it was generating a great income. And what I learned was that I should have multiple streams of income, not just one area that I'm making all the money, because you're going to always have these ebbs and flows, or a situation where you just completely lose everything and you can't have it all in that one place. And then I also learned that do something that you really, really love, where your skill set allows you to to have joy in the work that you're doing and fulfillment. And so I learned at that rock bottom place that, I really love personal development, and I really love habits and teaching and social media and design. And so I really learned the things that I really love. I don't love mailing packages and all of those types of things in customer service. And so I think when you hit something like this, you learn so much about who you are. And I certainly did, and what you want to do and where you want to go. And yeah, I think I answered your question on that.
Yeah.
But that position really led me to filing bankruptcy, because I had put everything into that business and it was gone. And at that time I had a rental that was costly for us in the moment. And we had credit card bills and all of the things. And it was like, yeah, we had to file bankruptcy. And what that taught us financially was we've got to live within our means and below our means, really, so that we always have some extra money saved away for situations like that. So we ended up getting a home that was 800 square foot. I think we were in something that was like 2,500 square foot. So we got something much smaller. We really dialed down on all of our bills, and we became, frugal in that moment to rebuild. And it was such a blessing that we were able to do that, because our mortgage was actually less than what rent would have been even at the time. And so in any way that you can kind of dial down and make sure you're able to save and diversify, it's just so important.
I think, and what I'm hearing too, that kind of happened in the background, and I can relate to this because I used to have this kind of mindset that I'm as good as what I get done, or I'm as good as what gets done under my watch, right? And the idea of, I guess this would have been one of my biggest fears, is like starting a business because it could all go away and then I'd be a failure. And like I would assign myself that label, right? Because that's what I would define as, like, I would have failed at this. And I wanted to stop at nothing to not fail. But then you realize that, well, your failure is actually not 100% in your own hands. And these things can happen to you. You can have hurricanes that hit your house, no matter how strong you've built the house or where you are, or anything like that. So when you think about it, what I'm actually hearing happen to you too, and what would happen to me, is what you have to do is strip yourself of the ego and strip yourself of the expectations, because I see a lot of business owners who are in that position, who are are nearing that rock bottom, but they are fully committed to keeping that lifestyle or keeping that impression or that image of nothing's wrong. And I need to maintain this lifestyle, even if it sends me into the downward spiral of bankruptcy. They're fully committed to that. And I find, and one of my mentors says this, he says, ego is your biggest overhead.
Wow.
Because
so good.
It's so good, because that's what's going to cost you everything, is thinking you're better than where you are, and not admitting that maybe it's downsizing. Maybe it's because what you're doing is you're investing in your future self by saying, hey, these are decisions we have to make today in order for tomorrow to be better. And ultimately what you're sharing with positivity is also doing the same thing. It's saying, these are the behaviors I need to have today to make tomorrow better. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had to downsize, but it really saved us, and it allowed us to truly understand what it means to live abundantly and wealthy, because sure, we weren't making as much money, but we felt like we were, because we were able to save. And that's where we really started to understand that abundance is a mindset, because you can make a lot of money, but doesn't mean you have it if you're spending it all, right? And so acclimating to your environment, but then if you do have to dial back, being okay with that, and learning that there's ebbs and flows in life, and you have to go with that and adapt. And sometimes downsizing is a blessing, really, because we don't need as much as we think that we do.
I completely agree. And I want to lean into, so we talk about the power of positivity. So you underwent this rebuild not just financially, but like in your life and also in your identity, so to speak. Because if you're like me, it sounds like we're pretty similar in that you probably wrapped up your identity in this business as well, where, you know, if someone says, "Who are you and what do you do, Kristen?" you would have said, "I'm an eBay seller, I'm a top seller." That would have been somewhere in the identity
Yes.
description.
Mm-hmm.
And that got stripped away from you. So we had to rebuild, the life, the financials, the identity. Talk to me about where the power of positivity was born and why you felt compelled to not only adopt these mindsets, but share them with the world.
Yeah. So after I had lost my eBay store, after a few, I would say maybe weeks or months, I'm not exactly sure, when I started working again, but I'm like, okay, what do I love to do? And what do I want to do? And I loved social media. Actually, I've been on social media since like I was a teenager, before anyone even really knew. I don't even know if they called it social media back then. It was called bolt.com, and it was even before MySpace. And
Yep.
so I'm like, okay, I love this. And social media was starting to grow. There was like MySpace and a little bit, I think, Facebook. I don't know. I mean, a lot of the ones that are here today weren't there then, but I knew I loved it. So I found, I did some Googling, and I found that there was a site called Odesk, which today it's Upwork. And I'm like, well, I can work for other people and teach them about social media. This is something I do love. And so I started working as a contractor, and I was able to work from home and, come out of this bit of depression that I was in, and everything I was going through and all the health circumstances I was dealing with. And so I was able to work and take care of myself. And that's where I really found like the work-life balance that I didn't have ever before. It was always just pushing myself to my limits, doing as much as I possibly could. And that's when I started to take time to read more nonfiction books, build financial literacy. How am I going to grow this? How am I going to be successful again and do it the right way? So I read all kinds of books, and I started to go on long walks. Like I said, investing in my health, investing in my food. And yeah, I wanted to eat healthier and put more money into my food, because before it was like oodles and noodles. I was really not putting much money into the foods I was eating. And so again, it was like, okay, let's live within our means. And we just kind of acclimated to being able to put more money into our food. But we made sure at the time that, we were saving, and we really made sure that we were consistent in diversifying what we were doing, in our savings and our bills and all of that. So we became much more financially literate. But after a few years of transforming the work I was doing, my body, I was getting so much healthier. I had released, let's 200 pounds. Actually, I released a lot of weight. And I just started getting healthier, because I was really compounding what I was doing every single day by investing into this positive lifestyle. And Facebook just came out with pages, and I'm like, okay, Kristen, we can't make it about work, because, here I'm balancing this work lifestyle. And so that's when I thought about the power of positivity, because I'm like, I looked and reflected on my life over the years and the transformation that was taking place in my mind, in my body, and in my life. And I thought, okay, this is really about a lifestyle of positivity, the power of positivity. And it's more than mindset, because I'm not just changing my mindset, even though that's such a huge part. I'm taking all of these positive actions every single day. And I started the page, and it was literally just like a passion project, because I was working for all these clients, and I didn't want it to be a job. I wanted it to be something fun, even though a few years later, it was a job, because I was like, wow, I could do this for a full-time gig. I would love that. This would be so cool. And so I found ways to do that. But yeah, it was just a hobby at first.
Yeah. And I love that it was built out of like, not the I want to build something on social media and start a business. Because back then, keep in mind, guys, if you're not from this era, like building a Facebook page, like nobody was monetizing Facebook. Facebook didn't even
No.
have ads yet. Facebook was essentially like a wiki board of, right? It was just like people posting their own statuses and other things,
Hmm.
and it was not saturated, and it was just college kids on it, really.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of it was very like light platform, very forgiving, and nobody had like intentions and monetization and business objectives on Facebook. So to start a page and grow it was huge, because it had to be done organically. It had to be done through people aligning with the message and wanting to follow along, because this would have significant real estate in your feed. Right? If you
Yes.
followed a page, it would start to have real estate in your feed where you'd see it every day.
Hmm.
So this was huge. Not only you getting in early on this, which you probably had no idea. Talk to me about that. When you started the page, you did it out of, like you said, a passion project. You had no expectations going into that. You were not attached to an expectation,
No.
which you probably were on the eBay store.
Mm.
And now you're attached to you're no longer attached to any expectation that
Mm.
this is going to do anything for you or produce any monetary value. You're purely doing it in service of others and to share what you're going through, right?
Yeah, whenever, you discover something and you really love it and you're just like so excited you want to tell
Yeah.
everybody, that's how I felt. And it was like,
Right.
wow, there's so much negativity in the world. I've got to tell people, because if I came from where I was, not even wanting to get out of bed, then, I couldn't imagine how many people I could help. And I loved social media. I did Google to make sure nobody had the name. Like, I didn't want to, like, if somebody had that business name, to me, I
Yeah.
was like, somebody probably has to have this. And they didn't. So it was like, all right, let's go. There's a green light. Let's go for this. And so that was as far as it went, as far as business, because I was an entrepreneur and I knew I'm not going to step on someone's toes if they already had the business.
Yeah. And like you said, if I understand the story correctly, you didn't really monetize it. You were just sharing thoughts, and it's almost like, and again, Facebook was kind of this digital scrapbook at the time, and you basically could just share probably quotes and thoughts and posts that were inspirational to you, that you just felt like, I want to share this with more people.
Mm-hmm.
And people started resonating with it. When did you realize that, like, ooh, I think we have something here, and I think this could actually be the next thing? Like, when did it kind of tip from the passion project hobby into, ooh, we could actually monetize, or, oh, this is actually getting real traction? Did something happen, or was there any type of phase that you went through in transition?
It was about 4 years when we did start to monetize, but I think maybe 3 or 4 years, we created a website where we started, because my background is journalism and I love writing. And so I'm like, wow, I could write articles on the foods and the habits and the things that I'm doing and the science behind that, so people really understand that this is real. So I guess it was a blog. Power of Positivity started at the time back then, because it's over 10 years still then. And yeah, so we created the website, and then we just had a friend that said, like, so we had the website, and then she said, well, did you know you could monetize the website? And we were like, what is that? Like, we didn't understand even what that was. And there was Google and ads. And so we learned how we could do that. And so I eventually had my first daughter, and I'm like, wow, I would really love to do this and be able to care for her at home here. Even though I was already doing that with clients, there's just so much more freedom when you're doing your own thing, right? And so that's where that kind of led, was working on the website. And yeah, Facebook didn't have any kind of monetization or, videos. I don't even know if they had videos at the time. They just had
Barely.
images and updates. That was it.
We had like digital cameras at the time. Like, our phones didn't have cameras at the
Oh,
time.
yeah. I'm like thinking, like, maybe it was like, yeah, the flip phones. I don't know. I don't think I had an iPhone for a while.
Yeah, I have to go back on like when the order of events happened. But yeah, like
Yeah.
Facebook was something I think I logged onto on my laptop. Like, I
At
didn't,
first, yeah, they didn't have like
yeah,
an app. And
no.
so, yeah, we were on our computers then. I mean, we had pictures. Of course, we could put pictures, and then, family started getting on there. And so it started to really grow then. And yeah, we just got in really early before like any brands were even on there, because they didn't understand that that was even something that they should be on.
Yeah. And I mean, acknowledging that timing was right for sure when you got in
Hmm.
early,
Yeah.
but also acknowledging that what you were offering, Kristen, was something that people were wanting and were craving. Because I think that we're never short on a need for more positive messaging in what we're reading. People, I mean, you have a background in journalism, which is perfect for this point. That I feel like journalism outlets are literally paid more for how much adrenaline they can extract out of a person from reading a headline. And it really is, it's a lot to, they're trying to grab your attention by spiking your adrenaline and making you pay attention and
Mm.
stressing you out. And I feel like people are getting paid to stress you out. We need to inject a little more positivity into the space as well to neutralize that.
Mm. That's such a good point, because when I was in college, they often said, your first job is like really bad. It's like with a newspaper and you have to go to like the car accidents and things like that. And I was like, no, 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 I'm going to go to New York City and I'm going to be an editor at a magazine or something. So that's like what my desire was. So when we started the website, it was like, oh, I can talk about all the great things around living a positive lifestyle to help people. But the truth is, even though my desire is to put out purely positive messaging, people also do react more to the negative, and that's a whole nother thing. But if we could just kind of train ourselves to react to the positive and read it, instead of always kind of being, be proactive instead of reactive and looking at the negative. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. And actually, the same mentor who says ego is your biggest overhead, this is Chris Harder. For those listening, please follow his podcast. But he also has a quote that where he talks about filling your life with positive propaganda.
Mm,
And he says he's intentional about shutting out the negative propaganda that's designed to get you all worked up, designed to get you upset. And he says, just shut out the negative propaganda. There are so many positive stories of, you know, life savings that happen, or triumph of winning, of, athletic accomplishments, financial accomplishments, charities. He says, why is this not news? Like, why is this not making the news? Oh, because it's not really sexy, because it's not drama filled. It's not the Real Housewives and the Kardashians of it all, right? Like, we're kind of fueled by drama at this point. We're running on drama and adrenaline, and that's not healthy. And to your point, the science behind it is, I fully believe, is like, that is really what it's coming down to. Like, we've never been more stressed out before, especially post COVID. I feel like we're all in survival mode
yeah.
and getting on the defense with each other instead of sharing love and positivity with each other. We're like, what does this person want from me? Putting up these guards. And I think that's going to just do even more damage to us as a society, because we're going to be putting barriers between one another.
Yeah, but you can't blame people out there because everyone's burnt out. I just did a talk
Yes.
last month, and there was a statistic from Gallup that, what was it, 76% of people feel burnt out. Um, Even just sometimes at work. That's a huge amount, and that's just the people who admitted. And when I did my talk, I asked everybody to sit down if they felt like they have been burnt out in the last year. And everybody sat down except my coach. She was back there. She stood up for me like, okay, I won't ever, because I had to share that stat. And it was just amazing, the percentage of people that feel like this. And so then it's kind of like spirals, right? When you're burnt out like that, you're not really seeking positive. It's like, it's almost like not your fault. You have to
Yeah.
compound the positive just like you compounded the negative. Just have to do it in reverse.
Yeah. And I also look back on, I've been burnt out before, mostly in my corporate career. And looking back on it now, coming out of that, I actually realized that so much of it was a choice.
Mm,
So much of it was a choice, because I was burnt out and I victimized myself
yeah.
thinking I was helpless around the circumstances that were imposed on me. And I was burnt out because of other people and the pressures they put on me. And I said, actually, so much of that was self-generated pressure, that
Mm,
if I had just stood my ground and said, I'm not going to work late tonight, and I'm not going to do this, and I'm not going to bend over backwards. And I remember that shot of fear of like, how dare I? It's the same thing about like going to the gym at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. It was the same feeling of guilt.
hmm
We have this
Yeah.
guilt that if we are not constantly productive, that we are useless and we aren't serving our purpose. But I think you're redefining purpose. with
Yeah.
that and saying like, that's actually not part of your purpose. Like you're just going to burn yourself out if you start connecting that with your purpose.
Yeah. And what was coming to mind when you were talking was just boundaries. You were setting healthy
Absolutely.
boundaries. You were like, okay, this is a boundary I'm setting with myself and it's for my mental health. It's so I don't burn out. It's so I, fuel myself, because you have to return that energy back to you. And we do that through boundaries. But we're always talking about boundaries like it's with someone else, but we have to do that with ourselves, around our work, around, scrolling on social media or whatever
Right.
it might be. When we start setting those healthy boundaries with ourselves, then we start getting it from other people. It's just such a really cool like mirror that happens, but we have to be okay with doing that for ourselves and knowing like, hey, I'm still worth it. I don't need to shame myself if I stop working. Actually, this is a good thing.
Yeah, I actually did it as my own personal social experiment. I said, okay, I'm going to not respond to emails. I'm going to check my email once a day for the next week. It's almost like a diet. Like, you go on
Yeah.
like, I'm going to intermittent fast for a week, or I'm going to
Yeah.
do whatever. Like I just chose like one thing to do. And I said, I'm going to do this for a week. And I'm going to like, and then I picture that like scene from The Hangover with Ken Jeong where he's like, but did you die? But did you die? And it's like, I didn't die. In fact, I was like more productive. And I go, oh,
Yeah.
I did the very thing I've been avoiding for so long and I didn't die. I actually went to the gym every day this week at a random hour just because. And I'm like, I didn't die and my work still got done. And I kind of proved to myself that if you can put those things into your calendar, or you can do those things that you want to do as opposed to what you feel like you're obligated to do. If you do those things first, and I'm like, you don't have to then work those things around the work. You can work the work around those things.
Yes,
And all of it still
exactly.
gets done. All of it still gets done, but you minimize the burnout because you actually prioritize effectively.
Yeah, I love what you said of put it in your calendar, because that's so key. I put so many things in my calendar now because when it's there, then we're going to actually do it. Just like this call we did, it was in our calendar. And so I think that is so key. No, if you want to do it, or you find that you aren't doing something you want, you got to put it in there. It's so pivotal.
Yeah. And just I want to go back to, obviously you had the power of positivity. You started that movement, 50 million followers. I want to talk about that for a second, because I know that there are listeners who are from the beginning of this episode were like, wait a minute, Shannon, we got to go back to this 50 million thing. How the hell did she get 50 million followers? Talk to me about the we'll call it unintentional and intentional build of this community, because I imagine for some phase and transition of this, it was unintentional. And then you started going, oh, what if we actually tried? And like, there might've been that moment where you go, what if we actually consciously build this community and we turn this into something? Talk to me about that experience and how much you gained in traction before or after that.
Yeah, learning from my first experience when I was doing it all myself, as we started to grow and build, then we were able to hire people, which is really the best, because you can stay in your zone of genius and you can continue to create and grow and build while other people help you. So I would say maybe after a year or two of monetizing, we started reinvesting back in the business. And, at first we hired, a VA in the Philippines, and actually she still works with us. So, it was so helpful because she helped us to schedule and do some of the little, EA type of work that I'm just not a fan of. And that was just amazing. And then when Facebook brought in video, we were like, okay, this is not, my area of expertise. And so we attracted some really amazing people that, and particularly one video editor that is still with us today. And he started creating video, and we started taking our quotes and our stories and turning them into video. And today now, even we share stories from our community of people who have, have turned their hobbies into careers, like as artists, or, oh my gosh, there's just so many videos that we've done. We even do cute videos of, really unique pets that people have, or some amazing stories that, of overcoming weight loss, or whatever circumstance it is. We love to feature positive stories of people who've, have done really amazing things. So all to say that, as we found a need, we hired somebody. And yeah, it's a risk because you don't know the outcome, But again, I had to put positive energy into that and know like, hey, this is going to create a positive ripple effect. People are going to receive this in a positive way. It's going to help our business. It's going to grow our business. And I had to put very positive intentions out and set high goals. I think that's really key because just like the quote, shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you land among the stars. I really love to set super high goals. Because I know, hey, if I don't achieve that, I'm going to land somewhere in the middle and it's going to be much further than I was. And so it's a careful balance between creating these goals and setting these goals and not being disappointed if you don't make it, right? You're just always focused on the progress and the impact. You know, and over time now, over the last 10 years, we've hired writers and editors and social media assistants. And so we have this beautiful team of people behind the scenes that are helping make everything work in the best way. And then even today, I'm like, okay, what do I love to do and what do I need to delegate? You know, and I think that that is so important to continue to remember to do. And it's certainly what I've learned from losing, you know, my previous business, that you always want to make sure that you're in a flow and you're doing something that you love, whether that for me is writing a book or creating video content or courses or whatever it is. You know, I just want to make sure that I'm bringing positive energy to what I'm doing because the energy behind it is so important in the success of whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah. And even if it's something you don't necessarily enjoy, you still have to bring positive energy to it.
That's true. If you're not able to delegate it yet, you have to find a way to love it and say, okay, for now, this is what I love about it. And down the road, if I have the opportunity, someone can help me with this part or whatever it is, finding the best of it. Absolutely.
You got to love the burpees because they're the gateway to what you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta kind of embrace them a little bit.
Oh my gosh. I love that. No, you're so right. I just finished the 75 hard challenge and I'm even actually stepping into the live hard phases. And, you know, I have to focus on, I didn't love, you know, running or walking in the rain, but I have to focus on what's the result? What's my why? And when that why is super strong, then you can do anything. Like we're like amazing.
When the why is strong and it's connected to that action, because when you see that, like most people will say, and this is like somewhat self-serving, but most business owners will always say, well, the accounting and the finances and that stuff does not bring me joy. And I go, it doesn't bring me joy either, quite frankly. Like I studied this and, you know, sometimes it's not that fun. Filling out tax forms isn't fun for even us, but we do it because it signifies something for us. It signifies helping business owners. It signifies progress and productivity and the things that we value. And it means something to us beyond the substance of what it is. And for business owners too, they'll say, well, you know, I love what Kristen's saying, like positivity. I want only positive things in my life. I say, oh yeah, but you can't make a diet out of desserts, people.
No, you're so right. Absolutely. That's when it starts to get diluted for sure. It's actually being real about what is actually positive and if it's actually creating positive energy. That's true.
Yeah, and distinguishing between positive and enjoying, because you can find elements of positivity even in the things you don't enjoy, like walking in the rain, because you're going, there's a bigger purpose to this. But I think people misconstrue that messaging a lot, and they'll say, well, I want to stay in my zone of genius and I don't want to do those things I don't like doing. And I say, yes, but that's basically, I don't want to eat my vegetables because I don't like them. And it's like, I understand. However, to build a healthy and complete business, you're going to have to eat the vegetables from time to time, and you're going to have to, you know, adopt a positive mindset around these things because they need to be part of your habits when you're early on.
It's interesting when you say that because often the things that, you know, we don't want to do, we do have to find a way to like it. But then later, usually we'll find out that we do like it. Like you said, eating healthy or eating your broccoli. You're like, even my 7-year-old, you know, she didn't like broccoli at first, but now she loves broccoli. But it's kind of having to convince the mind that it's something that's healthy for you and good for you and that you need to like it. And I think that's with almost everything, right? Push-ups. I'm thinking push-ups are coming to mind. Like you're like, oh, I don't know that I really like this, but it's healthy for us and it builds muscle. And there's so much more beyond just that temporary feeling. You have to look past that.
Yeah. But when you break through, let's say break through doing 10 in a row,
Mm-hmm.
and you start loving that feeling.
Yes,
And then you
exactly.
start liking the push-ups because at the end of that, you have a feeling and you start loving that feeling. And I was going to say too, when you mentioned like eating the broccoli, I go, well, and sometimes you can soak it in Velveeta.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a little bit easier when you figure out what to add to it to make it a
Yeah.
little more digestible. We actually, in the intro of this show, we say if the business finances are like eating your vegetables, consider this podcast the ranch dressing.
Oh, I love that.
Because we're trying to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So that's a really important part of it too, is finding what that is for you and adding elements of positivity in what you do, even if you don't enjoy it. And I think that's a key message too for our listeners, because it's not just about doing what you want to do all the time and doing what brings you joy. Yes, that is a big part of it, but it's also finding joy and generating joy in the things that don't already bring you it.
Yeah, because it's often the little things that we need to find gratitude for if we want to even have anything bigger than that. You have to kind of dial down first.
Absolutely. Love this conversation, Kristen. I do want to be conscious of your time and our listeners. So I'm going to wrap things up and just ask you, where can people learn more about Power of Positivity and where they can learn more from you?
I love Instagram, so at Positive Kristen and at Power of Positivity. And then I also have a website, positivekristen.com and powerofpositivity.com. All kinds of great resources and information are there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shannon. I loved it.